Hey guys, it's Lincoln-Goldfinch here with our weekly live video. We're starting the new schedule this week where I'm doing separate English and Spanish videos. This is our English video, obviously. And so we'll be doing English videos on Tuesdays at 11 and Spanish videos also on Tuesdays, but at 12 o'clock. Same topic, same content. Just separating the languages out so you guys can tune into the language that you prefer. So today's topic is the top 5 things to avoid if you want to apply for a green card. This is pulled from I would say the most common mistakes that I see people make, and the things that bar them from eligibility for a green card. And of these things on this list, God, I've had hundreds or thousands of meetings and consultations with people who had no idea that there were these prohibitions. And so I'm hoping to get this information to someone in advance of making the mistake. As always, if you guys have questions that are appropriate for the public, go ahead and put them here in the comments and I'll answer them as I'm doing the video or even after I'm done with the video. And then if you have private questions, feel free to call or text us at our regular number at 512-599-8500, or you can go ahead and send us a Facebook message that is private and we'll respond to you there. We are continuing doing free phone evaluations and free consultations for anyone who wants immigration help. We're trying to make it as easy as possible for you all to get the information that you need right now and to get going on your immigration applications. We are seeing still quick processing of immigration cases where an interview is not required. Of course, as you all know, and I've covered extensively in a lot of our videos, the courts are shut down for every case for immigration cases that are non-detained, and the consulates remain shut down for interviews, and U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Service is closed for non-emergency interviews like green card interviews and citizenship interviews. They are reopening bit by bit citizenship ceremonies, the oath ceremonies, so that's exciting development. But for the cases that aren't requiring interviews, we're seeing some faster processing. In some cases, they've even doubled the processing time. I believe that is because the agency is not focused on interviews, so they're able to get through a little bit of their backlog. I don't know that for a fact, but that's my belief. So let's go ahead and get to the content. Top 5 things to avoid. Of course, this is not an exhaustive list. There are other things that I recommend that people avoid doing, but I'm going to cover the most common mistakes that I see people make. The first most common mistake that people make when they want to apply for a green card is being in the country without status and leaving the country and coming back without status. And this is what I'm talking about is called the permanent bar. And the rule is that for anyone who was in the United States for longer than a year after April of 1997, who then left the country for whatever reason, even if it was for the death of a close family member and you had to go home for the funeral, if you left the country and then you came back or attempted to come back without inspection, you are subject to what's called the permanent bar. The other way to be subject to the permanent bar is if you have a deportation and then you come back. And a deportation is something specific. That means you were ordered deported by an immigration judge. Hi, Vicente. Hi, Fidel. You've been deported by an immigration judge, or you were issued an expedited removal at the border, which is a type of deportation. So a lot of people who just got apprehended at the border and got sent back and then came back in are not subject to the permanent bar. It can get a little complicated when I start getting into the nitty-gritty about it, but the main thing that I want to recommend is that if you've spent time in the United States without status, consult with an attorney before you plan to leave and come back. For a lot of people, this has already been done. This mistake has already been made. The borders are not as porous as they used to be, and so we don't see a lot of people coming and going like we did 10 and 20 years ago. But the thing about the permanent bar is it's really harsh penalty for people who made what I believe is not a very big error. If you're in the United States and you have to go home for whatever reason and come back, well, all of a sudden you're subject to this permanent bar. And what this bar says is that anyone who wants to get a green card through family has to leave the country for 10 years, and there's no waiver available for this bar. It's very extreme. It typically does not apply in humanitarian cases. So if you're applying for a green card through a U visa or a T visa or a VAWA, the permanent bar may not apply to you. Again, I don't want to get into too much of the nitty gritty because I want you guys to digest this content. And if you have specific questions about how this applies in your particular case, just reach out. We're happy to talk to you about your individual case. Okay, number 2 on the list is registering to vote or voting in any election. Often people who, and this applies to people who already have a green card, if you're not a U.S. citizen and you fill out a voter registration card or you go vote in any election, it is a lifetime bar to getting legal status. So if you have ever voted by accident, I mean, lots of times on a college campus or even in a grocery store, there's someone walking around with a clipboard trying to get people to register to vote. If you fill that form out, that can be considered falsely claiming U.S. citizenship. And it is an extremely harsh penalty, lifetime bar from getting a green card. There's no waiver available for life for committing this error. Another way that we see the false claim to citizenship. Oh, I mixed up the two. I'm talking about false claims, not voting. So we'll get to voting in a second. Right now I'm talking about false claims to citizenship, but they're the same bar. They're both a lifetime bar. So the false claim to citizenship, and the reason I put that as number 2 is because we see it more often than voting. So the way that we see a false claim to citizenship is usually if someone has come in across the border with someone else's documents. Maybe you have someone's birth certificate or someone's U.S. passport, and you're trying to come in as if you are that U.S. citizen. If that is discovered and put in the record, you will never be able to get legal status, get a green card through family. Again, sometimes there are waivers available if through some humanitarian cases, but not through family-based cases. It's a super extreme harsh penalty to falsely claim citizenship, and this can apply in applications for driver's licenses, applications for I-9s, for employment. Of course, those don't always come out. Immigration doesn't always have access to all of your I-9s. But telling someone you're a U.S. citizen for any benefit if it is discovered by immigration, has an extremely harsh lifetime penalty. So don't do it. And if you're watching this and you're freaking out because you've done it in some context, just reach out to us privately and we can help you understand whether it's going to affect your immigration case. But for those of you who are contemplating it, and if you want to get a green card in the future, telling anyone that you're a U.S. citizen for any benefit is very, very risky. Hey Chris, how's it going? I'm not using my new equipment. My neighbor Chris is watching and he helped me buy all of this equipment so I could have better sound and better camera. But I'm just on my cell phone because I couldn't figure it out. It was too complicated, so I need your help. Okay, so I mentioned voting, but voting is number 3. So voting is also considered, a false claim to U.S. citizenship, and it is also a lifetime bar, very harsh penalty. And as I was saying, it usually is on accident. Of course, conservatives are always thinking that undocumented people are going around voting all the time, which is just so untrue. But I have talked to people who have accidentally registered to vote, or even, not accidentally voted, but accidentally registered to vote. So if you register to vote, you need to retract it immediately. And you realize that you shouldn't have done it. You need to take action immediately to retract it. And of course, you're only eligible to vote in the United States in any election if you are already a U.S. citizen. So permanent residents should also not be voting. In the same vein with false claims to U.S. citizenship, we're on number 4 of the top 5 errors for people who want to get green cards, is any type of fraud. And this can be fraud in public benefits. Actually, receiving public benefits is not on my top list of 5, and I'll tell you a little bit about that. But any type of fraud, using someone's fake documents, telling immigration something wrong, leaving something out on a form, not disclosing that you've been in the U.S. previously and that you're now at the U.S. consulate trying to get a visa. There's so many ways to commit fraud with immigration, and the general rule of thumb is to disclose and be forthcoming if you've made a mistake, and of course talk to an attorney if something like that has happened. But the main ways that I see people committing fraud are border apprehensions. If they are using fake documents, maybe not U.S. citizenship documents, but like a fake visa or a fake green card. Or we see people sometimes not disclose a criminal history, maybe not disclose a special arrangement with someone in a marriage-based case. But anytime a fraud is committed in an application and it's discovered, it can create a lifetime bar. And if it's not a lifetime bar, it can create a ground of inadmissibility, which essentially would require a waiver. And these waivers are very specific about who can qualify for waivers. I just spoke with someone yesterday whose parents unknowingly committed fraud. They gave bad information about their immigration history at a consular interview. And they got the blue sheet that said they had committed fraud, and these people aren't eligible for a waiver because they don't have a qualifying relative. So not everyone gets a fraud waiver. And so the advice is always to tell the truth. But of course, if you have something in your past that you're concerned about disclosing, that is the time that you want to talk to an immigration attorney. And like I said, we're here to talk to you about this stuff. We're not charging for our consultations. Gone are the days where people could just fill out the immigration forms on their own and mail them in and see what happened. This is an era of restrictionism and enforcement in immigration. Of course, I know that's not a surprise to anyone. And so it's really important to be thoughtful and honest about what you're providing to immigration. And then the fifth of the top 5 errors that people make when they want to apply for a green card is having serious criminal convictions. And this, again, can get rather complex when we're talking about which crimes are considered grounds of inadmissibility or crimes of moral turpitude. Does driving without a license affect you? Public intoxication? The answer is no, typically not. There is a line, and generally it's the crime involving moral turpitude, which isn't even defined in the statute, so that I can't even just simply tell you what is a crime involving moral turpitude. But what I can tell you is that generally there's 4 categories that are very problematic. Any conviction dealing with any type of weapon is problematic. With any type of drugs, the drug penalties are very harsh in the immigration realm, with the exception of one conviction for less than 30 grams of marijuana. But anything else, a second conviction of marijuana, any other drug can be, and generally will have a lifetime penalty. There's no waiver available for drug convictions, super serious penalties. Anything that's theft related can be considered a crime involving moral turpitude. If it's minor shoplifting, there's sometimes an exception. It's called a petty offense exception, depending on how much time you got. But again, these are the kinds of questions. If you have a criminal history and you want to apply for a green card, definitely talk to someone about it, because it gets really complicated and it's ever changing. The case laws and the interpretation of them are changing all the time. And then anything related to violence, including assault, family violence, can bar someone from the ability to get a green card. So let me just review all of this with you guys. Number 1 mistake is people have departures, entries and exits that give them the permanent bar, the 10-year bar for which there is no waiver. The number 2 mistake is falsely claiming to be a U.S. citizen for a job or entry to the United States or a driver's license. Number 3 is voting when you don't have authority to vote as a U.S. citizen. Number 4 is any fraud. And number 5 would be serious criminal convictions. And convictions are different in immigration than they are in the criminal defense context. So your criminal defense lawyer might say, you paid your fine, it's done, it's erased, it might even be expunged off your record. It could still count as a conviction for immigration purposes. So often criminal defense attorneys don't understand the immigration consequences of certain plea deals. And so anytime you're considering a plea deal, if you're in a criminal process, you want to consult both with a criminal defense attorney and an immigration attorney. And we do advisals. We work with criminal defense attorneys a lot, helping them explain to their clients what they will be facing if they take certain plea deals. I know this topic this week isn't a very uplifting one, But whenever I see people make these mistakes, it's like, oh, it's a knife through the heart, because they didn't know. They didn't know what the effect of their actions were going to have. And here they are, married to a U.S. citizen, or their U.S. citizen kid is finally 21 years old, and they've been waiting decades, in some cases, to finally apply for the green card. And I go through the history, and one little thing renders them ineligible for the green card, and had they known, they wouldn't have made that choice. So hopefully I'm not freaking you out. Hopefully I'm giving you helpful, useful information, and as always, we're here for you to talk to you guys about your specific situations. Give us a call at 512-599-8500. Send us a text message, send us a Facebook message. We're here for you guys, and I hope everyone's staying safe and dry. Right now it's Tuesday morning in Austin, and we're having some rain and even some tornadoes in Bastrop, so I hope everyone's inside and safe, and I hope you have a great rest of the day, and I will see you guys for the Spanish video in 40 minutes at 12 p.m. Take care. Thanks for being with me, guys. Bye, everybody.